Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the panel sessions. I am your resident digital strategist, Short Julio. I'm actually joined today by an all-star caliber crew. We have Mel Coleman, Director of Marketing and Strategy, and we're joined by first-timer Visma Sanders, Director of Client Services. Super fun topic today, talking about the marriage between marketing and operations. So communication between marketing and other departments and how that really impacts everything that goes on at your, financial institution when that comes to online applications and visitors to your branches and your websites, etc. So let's kick it off. So Mel, thank you for joining me. Do a quick intro.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Mel, the Director of Media and Strategy here at Panos. I'm a former bank marketer. I'm a former briber of my compliance officer, and I sat outside of my chief risk officer's office to his chagrin. And currently working really closely with the media team here and helping our clients to understand and get their brands out to market, both paid and organically. And really just measuring everything back, making sure that we're not just using marketing numbers, but we're using real numbers to attribute the success of any effort.
Viz, pass it off to you.
Hi, so I'm Visma Sanders. I'm the Director of Client Services here at the agency, overseeing our team of, I think we're currently 9 account executives, account coordinators, project managers, mishmash. Really the hub of the agency, in my opinion, and probably everybody would say that about their own departments. But we work very closely with Mel's team, with media and with social, and with our web team and with our creative team to realize our clients' goals, quite simply. So this is my first webinar, by the way, people. So if I'm acting a little odd and such, you'll understand why, and give me a little bit of a break.
No, you're a digital native, a naturalist, and I like to call the AEs in client services really the cooks in the kitchens. They're the head coaches of the operation. They point, they tell us what to do, and we get it done. So let's get rocking and rolling with our very first question. So Mel, we've heard comments, a lot from banks and credit unions and, financial institutions across the country that it's really a challenge to get data or to get support. But it often just feels like a marketing issue, and marketing can be the scapegoat sometimes. But could you provide an example of how a breakdown in communication really is a larger issue?
Yes, and actually, I want to start first with maybe just a little anecdote that people joining may be familiar with. But when I was a bank marketer, we would want to run any kind of an effort, and the first question always was, okay, well, impressions don't keep the lights on, and clicks don't matter, and us as a response would be like, so how many loans came from it? And the lenders would want to take credit, and the retail staff would want to take credit. And it would leave us scrambling, asking, begging for crystal reports to be run, for anything to do date and time stamp matching, anything to try to get those numbers, just to prove that it was worth that investment. And that was something that I thought that I had kind of left 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But recently, we have a client who is onboarding a new online application system, and that's a really critical black box in terms of what the success of any marketing effort looks like, because we know clicks and impressions don't keep the lights on. We want to know how many completed applications are actually coming in the door from any campaign that's being run. We can't know that without knowing how the online application is performing. So for this client, the operations team was really set on these questions on the structure of the application, despite the fact that they weren't necessarily compliance related. They weren't things that were pertinent to the completion of an application to be considered for approval. They're just things that the operations team wanted there. And marketing, because it couldn't quite reach common ground, was fighting for things to be done. And ultimately a stalemate ensued that meant that less than 1% completion rate is coming from that online application. So that hurts everybody. It hurts operations because they're not getting completed applications, and it hurts marketing because nothing of value is really coming in the door from any of these efforts. So our ROI is always going to be low. And so that's really the most clear-cut example I can give as to why it's so critically important to be able to work across the aisle, so to speak, for the overall success of the institution.
Yeah, breakdowns, it happens in every industry, but most importantly, in the financial institution, because everything is integrated together. I think that's the biggest piece. But, from what I hear from a lot of clients, it seems like all these internal departments really do almost speak a different language per se. So how, Viz, specifically, how do you go about getting everyone on the same page to kind of come to this common goal?
You're right. I think that we see that here too. You know, obviously people have a goal and a need that they need to fulfill in their own jobs and in their own roles. And I think really it's kind of getting a meeting of the minds. So how do you go about doing that? Everyone has acute needs that need to be done. So just be supportive, be open-minded, listen to what other people really have to say and try to be a bridge between them and see things through their eyes. And that's how we operate here, where sometimes we've got competing priorities and things going on, and somebody's saying, hey, I need this now, but you got something else going now. It's really just kind of all coming together and working together for a common goal.
And a lot of that is also just kind of like, checking those egos at the door. Like finding the common ground is like reminding yourself too. And like as marketers, we can get very possessive. I know that happens for me all of the time. I go to talk to creative and two different languages right there, the creative language and then the more data-driven language. And I have to remind myself of what is ultimately the goal here? Is it to be done my way or is it just to be done right for the client? And that's got to be the kind of mindset going into this too, which is very difficult.
No, I know. One of the major things too that we run into is that, we're not our client. Our client has specific needs, and that, Mel in media is going to be different than what, Christy up in design has to kind of output for the client and kind of communicate. Things a lot of times do get lost in translation. That can happen internally at an FI with, what they really want, what the Lenny team wants from marketing. Then marketing comes to us and we kind of output something. It's like when it comes back and they're like, well, this isn't exactly what we want. And then we're back to the drawing board. So we really cut down on these, mishaps and breakdowns internally to really, speak the common language and really come to that one goal. We're going to see, revisions go down, and we're going to see a lot of output, and hopefully, we reach the common goal and get that return on investment, whatever that may be. Now, something I do really well here at the agency is play devil's advocate. So I want to have one of those moments now. So why should anyone, at an FI or internally at any industry, really want to work with marketing? Why do you think there is resistance in some organizations to include marketing at the table and not, and look at them kind of like the ugly duckling or whatever you want to say?
So I know, again, I'm going to go back to my big marketing days because there's some things that just kind of stick with you. But the number one thing is it felt like marketing when I was there. And it's the same thing that I'm hearing still now with all of our marketers, with everybody we speak to. It's the same kind of sentiment in that marketing is in a lose-lose situation. You're not going to get credit if things go well, because that credit's going to be given to retail. It's going to be given to the lenders. It's going to be given to an outreach that was done. It's going to be given to anything else, but not to marketing. But if something doesn't go well, like if a marketing campaign doesn't go well, which happens to everybody, well, then that is marketing's fault. And so some of that is also kind of like a middle child syndrome where you're always going to view yourself as the victim. But it is also true in the sense that every department is so defensive of their own success. They want to prove that they themselves can do it. We know that lending teams, though, are often the first ones to ask for marketing support. They're the ones saying, like, I need my personal brand to get out there. I need to be able to do these things. And in marketing, we're like, well, I need this to be able to get that done, or I need that to be able to get it done. I need more money, or I need to know what you're trying to accomplish. And we want to prove the success of it, based solely on, making sure that we're using the right tactics. But I think that the way that sometimes we can be perceived is that we're trying to own that credit, when ultimately, like as a marketer and as all of the marketing directors and coordinators and SVPs and CMOs, everyone we've talked to from a marketing perspective, purely just wants the bank to be successful. We just want to know that there was a ton of applications that came in and we can say, cool, SEM works great. Or yes, you know what, we have to be on streaming TV because for whatever reason that worked wonderfully. Or if they're like, no, yeah, it was the print ad in the local patch. That's what did it. And that's where I think that there is that breakdown in going back to Viz's point, that breakdown in communication, where we have to be not just saying, I want to know if this was successful. What does success mean? Is it that marketing is trying to steal all the credit and say that, the mortgage lenders aren't working just as hard? No, it's saying that dollars were being spent effectively, that time was being spent effectively. And so I think that if we can reposition, restate in a way that's a little bit less self-serving or a little bit more clear, because again, this happens in media all the time. We speak a really technical language most of the time that the rest of the agency, the rest of our clients can't understand. And unless we can really use just regular everyday language to clearly and effectively communicate, nobody's going to understand what we're trying to accomplish, regardless of the intent behind it. So it comes down to that language that we're using and really what is ultimately the goal behind the effort.
No, I'm totally guilty of that in media. Of I'm not speaking the technical language, not realizing sometimes when I go off on my tangents. Biz, you saw that today. When I just go talk about things like social or paid or whatever we're doing, it's like, oh, I should probably tone it back a bit, because when many clients see this too when they're talking to their customers in the financial space. It's not common language. It's not things that are normally said. You're not talking about checking accounts every day. The average person isn't talking about checking accounts every day or mortgage loans or understanding the process. It's just not a common thing. But to us in the industry, it's everyday talk. So it really is all about, as you said, Mel, checking egos at the door. And it's also important too that understand that everyone at a financial institution wants their hands in the pot. Everyone wants to be promoted. Everyone feels that their product specifically is the best at the bank and is generating the most money for the FI. So yeah, Viz, do you have any
Yeah, no,
comments?
I'd like to add something too. I do think, despite your nod to me saying I'm a digital native, I am far from being a digital native. I had to be dragged into Facebook because our clients were out there. So the social channels for me and digital channels in general are not what I grew up with. So I think that there is still some resistance towards marketing coming to the big people's table because it's viewed as an expense, not as an investment, really. And that's changed, I think, with the shifting of the marketing opportunities from traditional channels, a direct mail, a print ad, a newspaper ad, and getting it out there. Number one, hoping it gets delivered to somebody, hoping they open it, and then hoping maybe they did something. Well, now with the digital opportunities that are out there, we can actually see that and measure it and see what people are doing when they go to a landing page, when they receive an e-blast, what actions they're taking. And it's proving itself over and over again. So I think it's a mindset that's shifting, but I think it's not 100% across every institution yet.
And that's another great point though too, is, they're on top of the department divisions, and I'm just kind of having a moment here, so thank you guys. But on top of the department divisions, there is also a generational difference that makes itself incredibly clear in marketing, especially as it relates to the other departments, which are often a little bit more seasoned, especially as marketing is one of the easier ways to kind of get into something for people right out of college. But taking the time to thoroughly and thoughtfully explain new channels. So, I mean, for anybody who has worked with us in the past, but before us in media go crazy with any new proposals, we have to sell the agency on it. So, and that means being able to explain it, measure it, talk about what it means, like really what is the impact. And I think that that's really got to be the approach, because if we can really slow down and take our time in making sure that we're effectively communicating to each other, it makes it easier externally. So if you have a larger department, or if you have a boss that's maybe in another department, because I mean, again, bank marketing days, I reported to everyone from the CFO to the CRO to the SVP and the COO, all in 3 years. It's really being able to communicate with everybody, knowing that their backgrounds are wildly different than yours, is going to make the sell to other departments that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So we've heard about, when it doesn't work, but could you guys talk about, and I'll start with you, some instances where this duality of marketing and operations comes together and does work beautifully? Have you seen that?
Yes. And I love it. It's my favorite example, mainly because it's so often we work in theory, and then to see something play out in practice is such a fulfilling moment. So this client was or is sub 500 million in assets. So this is not an asset driven thing. Really, this is, again, sub 500 million means that you have to be smart with every single thing that you do and making sure that it's as effective as possible. And so starting back last July, the SVP of operations, who has sadly left the institution, but The SVP of operations joined every single media call once a month as we went through every campaign, and then we walked through the application every month. And we would look at, and we built out formulas to determine what the completion rate was of that online application, and then the approval rating of those applications. And making tweaks based off of, because in media, again, we're not just working in paid, we're also working in organic. There's a few of us on our team of 8 now who also work strictly in site maps and UX of websites. So that way we can understand, well, okay, we know the generations, we know how they behave, we know what they are expecting. Those kinds of insights should carry through to that online application. And the SVP of operations was completely in agreement. He was like, you know what, this is a great system, but everything can be improved. So every month we would go through, we would make suggestions, we'd make tweaks, and then we'd wait and we would see the following month how things were doing. Over the course of 6 months and doing that and taking that approach, we doubled the approval rate of those applications. And that affects not just marketing, which is great. We love to see it because that means that more of the people that were flooding into this application system are actually not just completing, but getting approved. But it also helps the institution overall, because that online application really applies to everybody, regardless of how they got there. And so that's where marketing and operations, it was just such a beautiful exact win as to what that success can look like. And that made its way throughout the rest of the organization. Everyone was thrilled. Everyone wanted to be involved and see how else that they could continue to build on that success.
Absolutely. I think the main point for that is complacency is killer. You definitely don't want to be in one spot and thinking, hey, no, this is what we've done for forever. Because with this new generation coming up, what you did, 5, 10, 20 years ago is not going to hold on to and be on par to what is going to come in the future. Because, those Gen Zs, they're something.
They are.
Viz, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, you just nailed it, I think. I was going to make an analogy between a former marketing role that I had back in product marketing. And there was frequently kind of this push-pull between marketing and marketing's view on wanting to move things forward, and yet being kind of tied with your hands behind your back because manufacturing would say, no, we can't do it this way. So it's overcoming all of that. And marketing really should be driving it, looking forward to like, what are we trying to achieve? What do we want to achieve? And then figure out a way to get there. Not to say, these are your lanes and this is where you're going to stay. And that, I think, right now is the beauty of all of the digital opportunities that are out there. And I don't have such a glowing example as Mel had speaking about success, but we see it over and over again. We see it with the campaigns that we're running for our clients, and you can measure it. You can see where people are going and what they're doing, what actions they're taking. So it's working.
Yeah, no, everything is tracked. Physical evidence is, what drives us as an agency, what drives many of our clients. Without having that data to back up and make informed decisions, then we're really just shooting from the hip, and you don't want to do that in this digital age. We're in a digital renaissance, as I like to call it, in 2022 and beyond. So again, going back, complacency, definitely don't want to be in one spot for too long, because all your competitors are going to run right by you. So Viz, keeping on you, what is your number one recommendation for how someone can really get started in building these relationships across these departments and becoming that key liaison to have the communication blossom into something beautiful, if that's not where it's at currently?
I think don't have just your own agenda, keep other people's needs and agendas, so to speak, in mind. Be authentic, be yourself, really listen to what people need, and everybody's got to keep open-minded. We don't know where the opportunities are going to go. We created our first Facebook page for a client back probably before you were born, Jordan. And who knows what's gonna, what the availabilities, opportunities, and channels are gonna be in another 5, 10 years from now. So we all need to keep open-minded and looking towards the future.
Absolutely. Mel, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, the biggest one is keeping, checking your ego at the door. Really, and like that's not just for marketers, that's for everybody. It's like, remind yourself of why you're there. What are you trying to ultimately accomplish? What does real success for everybody look like? And then work back to figure out how your success factors into that, rather than saying, well, I want this to be done because this is what I want done. That doesn't help anybody, truly. Even if you think you're right, it doesn't help anybody to approach any situation that way. So really leave your ego behind, because it's not serving you, it's not serving your department, it's not serving your institution.
All right. We're here to come to one common goal, whatever that goal may be. No department outweighs another department, because if you lose a department, then you're never going to reach that common goal. We're all in it together. So yeah. Well, those are all of the questions that I have for you both today. If anyone listening does have any questions, Mel and Biz, what are the best way for them to reach you?
You can email, it's great. It's just mcoleman@panosmarketing.com.
Yeah. Likewise for me, vsanders@panosmarketing.com.
If anyone has any questions for your moderator, it's jjulio@panosmarketing.com as well. Feel free to look us up on Google, call the agency, and we could chat further. But that's all I have today. So thank you both for joining me. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.